Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I am joined at the podium by Lieutenant Police Superintendent Greg Hudon, Detective Lieutenant William Donahue from the State Police, the Lowell City Manager Thomas Golden, Assistant District Attorney Chris Tarrant. Today we are announcing that Trevor Beatty, age 21, of Tewksbury, was arrested this afternoon in connection with the murder of 15-year-old Aliana Dickey, which occurred on Lawrence Street in the city the end of last week, Thursday night into Friday. Mr. Beatty has been charged with murder, armed home invasion, unlawful possession of a firearm, unlawful possession of ammunition, use of a firearm while committing a felony, and discharge of a firearm within 500 feet of a building. He'll be appearing in the Lowell District Court tomorrow morning to be arraigned on those charges. I'm going to speak briefly about the facts of what took place on Thursday into Friday, but I suggest that one of the most important aspects of this case is that Aliana Dickey was first known to be missing when she failed to appear for her 8th grade graduation on Friday morning. Aliana was at the time just 6 weeks past her 15th birthday. She turned 15 on April the 18th, 2009. Well, she was born on April 18th, 2009. When she did not appear at that graduation, the family members who were awaiting her arrival were concerned and began attempting to locate her. That continued throughout much of Friday. Shortly after 6 o'clock on Friday evening, Aliana's grandmother called the Lowell police and reported that they had found her inside her Lawrence Street home, and they believed that she was certainly hurt and possibly dead. When the police arrived, they found Aliana on the floor, in the first floor bedroom, suffering from apparent gunshot wounds. Multiple shell casings were also found close to Aliana. Later investigation determined that Aliana had been the victim of abuse from 21-year-old Mr. Beatty, who had been a boyfriend for some period of time. It was learned that Aliana had confided in a number of people that Mr. Beatty had been abusing her and was threatening her as recently as the middle of last week. The Lowell police had received a call around midnight on Thursday night into Friday from an individual who reported that they heard a male and a female fighting outside on the street. The caller reported that she heard that female screaming, "Get off me, get away from me, I don't want to be with you anymore." That caller further reported that they had heard gunshots. Police responded to the scene but did not locate anyone on the street after a search. Later recovery of video from that area showed that a young woman, later identified as Aliana, had been on the street at one point with a male, later identified as the defendant, and that events had unfolded as they had been reported by that caller. Police later learned that on June 15th, the defendant allegedly took an Uber to the home of Ms. Dickey on Lawrence Street, and shortly afterwards, he reached the same Uber and took that Uber away from the Lawrence Street area. The driver of that Uber later reported to police that he was concerned by the behavior of that passenger, and he later was able to identify that individual as Mr. Beatty. This afternoon, Mr. Beatty was located inside a residence in Peabody. He was arrested without incident. Obviously, given the tragedy of what has happened, Aliana's family is still grieving, has some very difficult days ahead of them, and has asked that their privacy be respected. As I mentioned, what's important to remember about this incident is that Aliana should have been finishing 8th grade on Friday. And also, the same topic, which I was here just about a week and a half ago speaking about, which is the prevalence and the use of guns in our community. This is at least the 5th individual to die by a firearm in Middlesex County. That does not count individuals who have been shot and have survived that. This time, it's a 15-year-old girl. We just cannot continue to countenance this kind of violence, the use of firearms, and the using a firearm in an argument and turning that from an argument to the tragic loss of life. Those are the important pieces to be thinking about when we consider what happened, and in light of Mr. Beatty and the charges that he'll be facing tomorrow morning. I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. I'd just like to thank District Attorney Marion Ryan and her team for all their support and working through this case to get us to this point today. I'd like to thank the state police and all their detectives who worked hand in glove with our detectives in the Criminal Bureau to bring this case where we are. There were multiple agencies and resources that were brought to bear to get us here. I'd just like to mention and thank a few of those other organizations. I'd like to thank the Tewksbury Police Department, the Nashua Police Department, Burlington Police Department, Peabody Police Department, Danvers Police Department, and Saugus Police Department, who in some way or another assisted our detectives and state police detectives in our ongoing investigation. I'd like to thank the State Police VFAS Unit and Middlesex Sheriff's Office for their support with their personnel that also assisted in our ongoing investigation. Most of all, I'd like to thank the community for their assistance as detectives went, in some cases, door to door, collecting information and video. I'd like to just mention that this is an isolated incident, and with the arrest of the suspect today, that there no longer appears to be any ongoing threat to public safety. And I'd just like to close and thank members of my team, all the detectives and patrol officers who worked very diligently over the entire weekend, virtually 24 hours a day, to bring us to this point today. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Obviously, given that we're still early in the investigation and Mr. Beatty will be in court tomorrow, I'm happy to take a few questions.
DA, can you talk a little bit more about the circumstances of the shooting? We were hearing from neighbors that afterwards he poses her using her cell phone, texting her friends.
Those are all pieces of the investigation that we're still looking at. It's obviously very early. We've been working over the weekend. We await records and other things. We'll have more to say about that as the case goes on.
Can you talk a little bit more about his criminal history? It looks like he was arrested for both a gun charge as well as a previous robbery attempt in the last few years.
That's something else that we'll be talking about at the arraignment tomorrow. Thank you.